Yep.
Mr. Abbott, in criticising your government's decision to block the sale of Grain Corp to ADM, Paul Howes has said that Murray and Par farmers should get out of the way and make way for large-scale conglomerates. What are your views of that decision?
I think it betrays a certain ignorance of the farm sector, and I think it betrays a lamentable contempt for family business and for family farming. A lot of these family farms are very sophisticated operations, multi-million-dollar operations. They're highly efficient, and they're more than capable of competing on good terms with much larger businesses. I think there ought to be a place for all sorts of different types of businesses in our agricultural sector, large Australian businesses, large international businesses, smaller businesses, and the family farm. I think there should be a place for everyone.
Prime Minister, prior to the election, you described the Greens as economic fringe dwellers, but now you seem to be happy to do a deal with them on the debt ceiling. How do you reconcile those 2 points?
Kieran, our challenge as a government is to clean up Labor's mess and to keep our commitments. And part of cleaning up Labor's mess is to avoid the sort of problem which the United States had recently because they were running up against legislated debt ceilings. Now, the former government, in its last published statements, said that gross debt would peak at $370 billion. The Office of Financial Management said that you needed a $40 to $60 billion buffer of prudence. So plainly, we need well over $400 billion as a debt ceiling just to cope with Labor's debt. And having created the problem, Labor were trying to make it impossible to fix the problem. Utter economic and political vandalism. That's what we've been seeing from the Labor Party. It's really very interesting, Kieran. In the last Parliament, we were determined and we fought very hard as an opposition to ensure that the government kept its commitments. This opposition is trying to ensure that we break our commitments. I mean, it's bizarre behaviour. It is truly bizarre behaviour. And the point I make to Mr Shorten is, how can he ever complain about us allegedly not keeping commitments when he is constantly trying to prevent us from keeping our commitments, of which the most fundamental of all is the carbon tax? So we will clean up Labor's mess, and that means adjusting the debt ceiling.
Mr. Abbott, can I just clarify your answer to Sid earlier? Are you saying that you're satisfied that the intelligence services have never acted in outside of the law and have never overreached, including in 2008 when these latest documents come?
I have no evidence that they have.
Mr. Abbott, you seem to argue this morning against any sort of loan guarantee for a private company. Is that something you're ruling out?
Let's see where this debate goes. I'm not sure that Qantas themselves have put a specific proposal to the government. They've certainly been unhappy with the conditions under which Virgin has been operating, but I'm not sure that they've put a specific proposal to us. Our fundamental duty is to ensure a strong and competitive aviation market in this country, which delivers the services that Australians need at the best possible price, and that's what we will be doing our best to ensure we have. David?
Mr. Abbott, the Snowden document today centres on sort of collection of raw, bulk signals intelligence. Do you think in the national interest there is ever any case for the collection of that sort of wholesale information about raw communications? And do you think that there's any case for the sharing of that with allies like the US?
Well, David, let me make 2 points. First, you can only get access to the content of communications by warrant under our system. The material that I understand was referred to in the Guardian story today related to essentially the billing data. Now, that has been available, but there's a big difference between billing data and the actual content of calls. But all of it is subject to a range of very stringent safeguards, the Inspector General of Security Intelligence and the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence.
Does technology change suggest there should be a review of how the oversight on intelligence is gathered?
I very much reject any suggestion that Australian security intelligence services should not gather the information necessary to keep our country safe and protect our citizens. And if there's any evidence that we have acted inappropriately, that we have done something illegally, produce the evidence and the matter will be dealt with. But there's nothing that's in the public arena, there's nothing that I am privately aware of to suggest that any Australian law has been broken, that any Australian security and intelligence agency has been overzealous. I want the long, strong arms of Australia to be zealous in protecting our national interest and in protecting our citizens. And I think we do have very strong safeguards in place, and that will always be the case. But the fundamental objective is to keep our country safe and to protect our citizens. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Abbott, you said that the SRS will still apply in those signatory states for the next 4 years. So does that mean now, Mr. Pyne, you are not changing the model under which funding is allocated to those states for the next 4 years?
Well, Daniel, we're improving the model in exactly the way that we promised we would before the election. We said that we wouldn't go ahead, for example, with the School Performance Institute or the Federal Inspectorate of Schools. We wouldn't keep the implementation plans of the Federal Minister over individual schools. We said we would dismantle the regulation and the red tape, the Canberra control that was inherent in the Australian Education Act, and we'll do all of those things. And of course we are improving the model too, because it's now a national model. It includes every jurisdiction, when Bill Shorten left us with a model that didn't.